Formula One, being the pinnacle of motorsport, puts drivers in some of the fastest cars on the planet, pushing them to the limit across 16 different races, all while reaching for the World Championship trophy. It has become one of the most popular sports in the world. Fans are met with thrill, suspense, and sometimes tragedy. The 1976 F1 season had all of that and some. Headlined by drivers Niki Lauda and James Hunt, this year was one that we will never forget. Battling for a top spot in their respective division for years, Niki and James were very familiar with each other. Being friends and fierce foes, the two had a long history even before this season, and tragedy brought them even closer. The tragedy I speak of would happen in race 10 at Nuremberg, Germany. Heading into the race, Niki Lauda had a fairly comfortable lead with 61 driver points, and Hunt only had 35. Dominating from the get-go, Lauda was able to win 5 of the 9 earlier races outright, while finishing top 3 in 3 of the other races. Not even in second place, James Hunt's driver championship hopes were dwindling heading into the German Grand Prix. Back in the 1970s, the Nuremberg track was considered one of the most dangerous tracks on the circuit. In the summer before the race, safety was high on the list of priorities in the Formula One world. It was apparent the cars were too powerful for the circuit, as tight turns needed extreme caution to maneuver them properly. This wasn't just a problem in Germany, but at many tracks across the world. In the 3 years prior to 1976, 5 drivers had been killed at the wheel of F1 cars. It was becoming obvious something needed to change. At some tracks, drivers were frightened, and of course, it was worst of all at Nuremberg. When the F1 circuit arrived there in the summer, they were all horrified. There was only so much organizers could do. The guardrails were too close to the road, and there was little runoff to slow down a car that was out of control. The track was so long that the number of marshals required was huge, the amount of equipment enormous, and the cost of reconfiguring the track unthinkable. In an effort to provide a better fire service, they organized high-speed intervention vehicles, but these still took time to get to any scene of the crash, and in those days fire was still a major hazard. Before the race, Lauda made it very clear he didn't want to race. My personal opinion is that Nuremberg is just too dangerous to drive on nowadays. On any of the modern circuits, if something breaks on my car, I have a 70-30 chance that it'll be alright, or that I'll be dead. Here, if you have any failure on the car, 100% death. At the drivers' meeting just before qualification, he proposed that they boycott the race, but after a vote, the majority of drivers wanted to go ahead and race. After the qualifying race on Saturday, the following day, on August 1st, the grid was set. With James Hunt in pole position, Niki Lauda had some work to do to regain the lead. Sunday morning was a rainy one, with every driver choosing wet weather tires except one. At the start, Lauda's Ferrari teammate, Clay Regazzoni, took the lead ahead of the McLarens. James Hunt and German Jochen Mass watched as Regazzoni spun in the course at the first lap and dropped to 4th. But by the end of the lap, most of the drivers pitted to switch to slicks, a more stickier tire designed for drier roads. After not following most of the drivers into the pits, Jochen Mass had a big lead, but conditions on the track were treacherous and different from corner to corner. With rain on some corners but not on others, it was apparent this relatively large track was causing problems. Just after the Adenau Bridge, the circuit sweeps uphill, curling first to the left and then to the right around many of the basalt outcrops. The track then follows the hillside up the valley of a stream called the Exbach. About 400 meters along this straight, there is a fast kink to the left, following the hillside towards the curling right-hander beneath the cliff at the Bergberg. In the second lap of the race, when Niki Lauda was crossing this area, he went out of control in the fast kink to the left and plowed into the earth bank on the right side of the track. Going 280 kilometers per hour, something on his car broke, sending him straight into the wall on the right side. His car instantly turned into a fireball. The flaming Ferrari bounced onto the circuit, into the path of the cars that were following. Lauda's helmet was instantly torn off, and he was trapped by his seatbelt in the cockpit. Being stuck in the car for almost 1 minute, the car quickly burned to 800 degrees. Guy Edwards managed to avoid the Ferrari as he passed, but Herald Ertl and Brett Lunger both hit the flaming wreck. All 3 drivers stopped on the side and fought to get Lauda out of the car. They were joined by Arturo Mazzario, who stopped his car to help the situation. In the end, it was the little Italian who managed to open the belts, and Lauda was heaved from the chassis. He was badly burned and had inhaled fumes and toxic fire extinguisher powder. He was rushed to the hospital in nearby Adenau and then airlifted to the University Hospital in Mannheim. Surviving this crash was nothing short of a miracle, as he did officially die in one instance, needing to be resuscitated. The fact he made it to the other side is truly incredible. Quote, "I was right on the point of death for days, and I think I really did die once." Lauda further explained he never remembered much about the crash itself. After a grueling and quick recovery, Lauda did return to the cockpit only 6 weeks later at Monza. A scene of true perseverance, only having 6 weeks to recover from one of the most intense and unbelievable crashes, Lauda was ready to race Hunt for the title. In the 6 weeks of recovery, Hunt made up the distance in the driver title race and was within reach of Lauda. 1 week after the race in Monza, Hunt finished first in the Canadian Grand Prix and was within 10 points of Lauda for the lead of the championship. With 2 races left in the season, Hunt put the pressure on when he finished first at Watkins Glen in New York as Lauda finished 4th. With that, it all came down to the Japanese Grand Prix, as the 2 drivers were within 4 points of each other. On that fateful day, the race started under wet fog and had running water on several areas of the track. There were intense debates as to whether the race should even be started, but in the end, organizers decided to go ahead with it. While a majority of drivers were not in disagreement with the decision, Lauda and a few other drivers were not happy. As the race started on time, James Hunt took the lead with John Watson and Mario Andretti just behind. But on the second lap, Watson slid down an escape road, and in response, Niki Lauda drove into the pits and withdrew from the race. Believing the weather conditions made the track too dangerous, he went on to say, "My life is worth more than a title." Larry Perkins made a similar decision after 1 lap, as did Carlos Pace and Emerson Fittipaldi. Hunt went on to lead the race, but behind him, second place passed between Andretti and Brambilla. On lap 22, Brambilla challenged for the lead, but spun out of contention before retiring 15 laps later. Jochen Mass moved in the second before crashing on the 36th lap just before turn 7, promoting Patrick DePauler into the position with Andretti third. It seemed Hunt was on for an easy win, but as the track began to dry, he started to lose positions. He only needed 4th place to win the title because of Lauda's retirement, and on lap 62, Hunt fell behind DePaulier and Andrade. Only 2 laps later, DePaulier's left tire started to deflate and he had to pit. Andrade then took the lead, then Hunt had a similar tire problem and was forced to pit. Dropping to 5th, he still had some work to do. And on lap 70, he overtook the 2 drivers in front of him in order to move into 3rd. Finishing in this position, he went on to win the World Drivers' Championship. There was brief confusion as the immediate unofficial finish marked him as 5th place, but with quick deliberation, the official finish was 3rd. While Niki Lauda came up short in the Drivers' Championship of 1976, he went on to race in the following years, winning the championship in 1977 and a 3rd in 1984. Thankfully, Niki Lauda survived his harrowing crash in 1976. His perseverance and bravery to return to Monza in just 6 weeks after the crash is truly an inspiration to everyone. In the aftermath of the 1976 season, the Nuremberg track was reconfigured and has never been raced in the same form again. Most of the circuit races were also reconfigured to allow for more safety measures due to the strength and power of the cars racing. Motorsports will always include danger and high risk, but to allow for such close margins were just irresponsible for race organizers to put the drivers through back in that age. Modern F1 has made large improvements in driver safety and regulations that should keep these tragedies under control. Sadly, Niki Lauda passed away in early 2019, marking the end of a legendary run in motorsports. He not only was a legend as a driver, but was heavily involved in several teams after his retirement. He will always be remembered as not only a great person, but a truly exceptional driver behind the wheel of a car. That is the story of Niki Lauda's 1976 season. Please like and subscribe if this story piqued your interest, as everything helps out this channel, and tune in next Friday for another story from our past.